Paramashivoham. Om Nityananda 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 Paramashivoham.
Nityanandam Paramasukhadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Vandvatitam Gagana Sadrisham Tattvamasya Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadi Sakshibhutam Bhavati Gunarahitam. On this auspicious, having the beautiful Nidanam, we are rituals in Sanatana Hindu Dharma to the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism and all of the monastic disciples of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism. Offering food to the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism is equal to feeding millions of hungry people. This is offered to liberate the departed souls and let them rest in peace, giving them enlightenment and furthering them towards their enlightened life. The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism is the very incarnation of Paramashiva himself. He is the space of complete completion. When the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism accepts or receives the Maheshwara Puja, which you are giving when you are offering the Maheshwara Puja, for those moments he is the direct representative of those departed souls. He is completing the incompletions that we have with the departed souls and the incompletions they have with us. Whenever we are apart from the departed souls, whenever we see that they have left us, there is a part of them that is remaining inside of us that needs to be healed, that needs to be completed. And by offering the Maheshwara Puja, hundreds of thousands of people were able to find that completion. Of course, Hinduism has traditional offerings that need to be done. This is known as Tarpana or Shraddha, and regularly you are supposed to pay homage to your ancestors, giving them the pinda darpana, the pinda, which is basically a basic simple food that is consumed by the Pitrus on particular times of the year. The Pitrus are your ancestors, and this is regularly done, and it is to nourish them and help them move them along their path and define the completion within us. There is a contribution of them inside of us, but the Maheshwara Puja is the best and one of the most ultimate offerings that you can make to the Pitrus, because the Pitrus, our ancestors, are fed through the very heterogeny of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism and of the monastic disciples. When the food is offered, when it quenches the Jataragni or the existential fire that is there inside of the sannyasi's body, then it quenches something more than just the hunger, it quenches the very seeking itself. It is said that Paramashiva himself comes down and sits as a sadhu in the line to eat the food of those who offer the Maheshwara Puja. So today's ritual is a celebration of the liberation of all of us and all of the departed souls, our loved ones who have passed away. In the Maheshwara Puja, we chant the 15th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. It is one of the most profound chapters that the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism tells us and teaches us by reviving the deepest sentiments of Hinduism, where this particular 15th chapter is chanted every time we do we partake in a meal or anything. In the monasteries, in the traditional Hindu monasteries, before we partake a meal, just for a few minutes before we chant the 15th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. This chapter is known as the Purushottama Yoga, the yoga of the Supreme Being, that of consciousness itself. Why is it that we have to chant this particular chapter? Because it gives a beautiful understanding about who we are, what is our life, what happens after life, and who is the highest Supreme Being, Purushottama himself. Beautifully in this chapter, Bhagavan Sri Krishna elaborates on many analogies and gives examples about what it is that we must follow as seekers and practicing Hindus. So that is one part of the Maheshwara Puja, and of course we will be offering the pinda and food, and before the Maheshwara Puja starts we do a small puja which includes this Bhagavad Gita chanting, and after that we will be doing the Maheshwara Puja, where Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism along with all of the sadhus and sannyasis will be partaking the pinda prasadam. So the 15th chapter, the Purushottama Yoga, begins with the Bhagavan Sri Krishna telling us that the life is like an imperishable banyan tree. It is symbolized by the tree known as the Ashwatha. The banyan tree has a very unique point that it has branches spreading out, and from the branches roots come, and the roots go and come into the ground, and like that the tree spreads and moves. So the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism makes sure that we learn and understand these deeper meaning as we chant the Bhagavad Gita 15th chapter today. We will also be singing the meaning and imbibing the truths in the modern understanding, in the modern language, when we do the puja and the prayer today. So the banyan tree, the leaves are said to be the Vedic hymns, and this is supposed to be the tree of life itself. And the branches of this tree extend, as we are explaining, continuously, and the tree goes bigger and bigger. And it is nourished by all of the gunas, the qualities, and the very fruits are known as the sense objects, and its roots are going down, and these are all bound by the resultant actions of humans. Beautifully, Bhagavan Sri Krishna is giving the example of the banyan tree as the life itself, as the various gunas, as the sense objects, as the actions that we do, the karma that we do. This is all a part of the Manusya Loka. This is all part of the human existence. But the real form of this tree cannot be perceived. No one can understand where the banyan tree begins, where it ends, or where its foundation is. But we must understand that amongst this world and living world and the karma, the going behind the karma phala and going behind action, we must find detachment from this worldly life. And then he encourages us to cut this strongly rooted tree with the weapon of detachments. Then he addresses us as seekers of enlightenment, seekers of living enlightenment. Then we must surrender to the Supreme Being and take us to a place that we cannot return from. So those who are seekers, those who, anyone who has a connection and understanding that they have something that they have to do for their Pitrus, they have an understanding that there is something more than the body and mind. They are spiritually oriented. They are someone who may be free from pride, delusion and attachment, who dwell in the self, who are done with lust and free from the dualities of joy and sorrow. They are not confused, and they want to decide to find the Guru in their life. They want to surrender to the Supreme Person and attain eternal consciousness. They want liberation. And these are the people who we are, who we want to progress towards. And this space of eternal consciousness is a beautiful, resplendent light that is not touched by any other light in the cosmos. Neither the sun or the moon by any fire can touch this light. And this is how we understand consciousness, how consciousness is visualized and explained to us by Bhagavan Sri Krishna. And all of us are conditioned to the material world. We have the six senses and all of the mind also that is dwelling in Prakriti, the active energy principle. But the Bhagavan Sri Krishna says again and again, the spirit in the mind body living in this material world moves from one body to another, carrying these just as air carries aroma. He is saying that the six senses and all of these things are carried just like how air carries aroma. So we move from one body to the next, a truth that is there. And again Bhagavan Sri Krishna emphasizes in Bhagavad Gita that we are the consciousness that resides inside the body mind. We are not the body mind itself. This is an important truth to understand, because once we understand this truth, we'll be able to consciously and physiologically even heal from all of the pain or grief that we may have experienced when we have had our loved ones depart from our lives. So this is an important understanding to have, to understand that we are consciousness. The living entity, the spirit, leaves one body and takes another body, gets new eyes, ears, nose, tongue and sensing body according to the samskaras it had in its causal layer, and enjoys the new mental setup. And this is how this Bhagavan Sri Krishna is sharing a truth again and again, that the spirit or the entity that is there residing inside of us, who we are truly, moves from one body to the next. It carries these different sensing objects. But those who do not perceive the spirit, but how then and don't observe how the spirit is conducting the whole body and conducting the whole mind, the one who doesn't have the inner eye open, who does not see all these things, does not perceive everything. But the one whose inner eye is open clearly perceives and it receives everything. Vimudha, the verse says, Vimudha nupashyanti pashyanti jnana chakshushaha. The one who has the inner eye open clearly perceives everything. Yatanto yoginas chenam pashyantyatmanyavasthitam. The serious practitioner of yoga, the one who is seeking the self, the one who wants to cognize themselves as pure consciousness, can see all of this clearly. They can understand their consciousness and the mind and the body, and all of these things are just parts of them, but that is not them completely. Just like that, the Bhagavan Sri Krishna shares about this. And to give you more information, this particular chapter in Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, recommends us to chant it before every meal. Why? It is because the mantras, even if you don't understand them, we are understanding the meaning. Whatever we're sharing right now does not mean it needs to be memorized, and you don't have to sit in a very in a pressure to learn all of these all of a sudden. You can sit in a relaxed way and let the Sanskrit mantras do their work. They have their own innate power. The syllables of Sanskrit are made from the very Dhammaru of Paramashiva himself. The very Paramashiva himself made the Sanskrit, and it is part of the existence itself. Just by listening to these syllables, we can experience the healing and the rejuvenation of our causal layer, of our inner sheaths, of our inner consciousness. And by having that happen, we can really heal from all of any of the grief or the suffering that we may face, or the parts of us that are contributed by our ancestors, by our Pitrus. All of them will be healed, and in that also we will be celebrating also the Pitrus also being liberated. And we have the next verse, entering into the earth, the supreme being, the Purushottama, is now explaining. When Bhagavan Sri Krishna is speaking inside the Bhagavad Gita, he speaks as Parandhama. He speaks as the Parabrahma Krishna. The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism again and again reminds us that when Bhagavan Sri Krishna is explaining, he is not just the charioteer of Arjuna in this Bhagavad Gita. He is in fact Parandhama, he is in fact the Supreme Being, Purushottama himself. And when he is telling this, he is saying, entering into earth, I support all beings with my energy, becoming the watering moon. I nourish all plant life. In this way, Bhagavan is literally sharing how he is the cosmos itself and how he functions and organizes the whole cosmos. He says a beautiful verse, one of the most powerful verses that we must chant again and again, because it is very important. It says, Aham Vaishwanaro Bhutva Praninam Dehamashritah Pranapana Samayuktaha Pachanyannam Chaturvidam. He says, I am the fire of digestion in every living body, and I am the breath of life, exhaled and inhaled, with which I digest the fourfold food. This is a beautiful mantra that we must understand. The fire of digestion does not just digest the food that we have, it digests the very karmas that we have, it digests the very life and moves us forward and rejuvenates us continuously. That Agni, that Jataragni, that Vaishwanara Tattva is there inside of all beings, and we have that inside of us. And when we worship fire as those who take Shiva Diksha, as those who take the initiation from the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, take a part every day in the ritual of doing the worship of the fire. And fire worship is very important, and the fire exists of course inside of us. When we worship the external fire, the internal fire inside of us heals and rejuvenates us and gives us new life and makes space, removing the old patterns, and makes space for new experiences, for new life to happen, and new experiences and bliss to happen inside of us. This is how the Vedas and the Upanishads or the Vedic masters really taught the world how to use rituals and kriyas and to be able to rejuvenate oneself every day and live a continuous living enlightened life. And the part of that is worship of Vaishwanara, worship of the very Agni that is there inside of us, through the worship of the fire outside of us. And he says very clearly, Bhagavan says, I am seated in everyone's heart. From me came memory, knowledge, and their loss. I am known by the Vedas, and I am the creator of the Vedanta. And then he goes on to beautifully share about the world itself. And he says that there are two things in the world, the perishable and the imperishable. There are the living beings who are perishable, our bodies and minds are perishable, yes. But there is within us the imperishable, that is unchangeable, that is there within us. And then finally he says there is the Supreme Purusha, the Lord himself, who pervades and sustains all these three worlds. And beautifully he shares that he is transcendental, beyond both the perishable and the imperishable and the best. He is declared both in the Vedas and in the world as Purushottama, the Supreme Person. And whoever knows me like this, whoever understands this, is to be understood as the knower of everything. Just beautifully he's sharing that whoever understands the Supreme, whoever understands that he is imperishable and he is there within us, that person is to be known as the knower of everything, and he is a true worshipper of the Supreme. If you all want to be a true devotee, a true worshipper of the consciousness of the Paramashiva that resides inside of us, understand he is there within us, and he is the Supreme, and he is imperishable without a doubt. Have this cognition as this powerful truth that Bhagavan is saying. Yoma me mama sammudo janati purushottamam sasarva vid bhajati mam sarva bhavena bharata. He says to Arjuna, he addresses him as Bharata and says that those who knows me as the Supreme without a doubt is to be understood as the knower of everything, and he worships me with all his being. Just by knowing that he is the Supreme, that knowing that he is imperishable, the consciousness that is there within us, by knowing this, we truly worship in this highest way. And then finally Bhagavan Shri Krishna concludes this beautiful chapter saying, Iti guhyatamam shastram idam muktam maya nagha etad buddhva buddhiman syat kritakrityascha bharata. This is the most profound teaching taught by me. He says again that this is the most profound teaching. He says to Bharata, Arjuna, and whoever knows this truth will become wise, and his actions will bear fruit. To achieve, we want to knowing this profound truth and teaching that is actually a secret in this very chapter of the Purushottama Yoga, and there we conclude the Purushottama Yoga of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, which actually, in fact, in this period of Chaturmasya, all of us are studying. This beautiful chapter, along with all of the other 18 chapters, are there beautifully combined by the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism in the beautiful book known as the Bhagavad Gita Decoded, a magnificent book that really brings to the modern world in the modern English language and a very powerful way the truths of Bhagavan Sri Krishna himself. Literally, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism is a devotee and a great celebrator of Bhagavan Sri Krishna, literally embodying Bhagavan Sri Krishna whenever we have the beautiful opportunities. Krishna Bhava Samadhi Darshans, we're able to see how beautifully all the aspects of Krishna are able to manifest through the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism. With that, we can celebrate the Maheshwara Puja upcoming, and a few more facts about the Maheshwara Puja. Specific places are there, Tirtha Kshetras, which are sacred sites to go and do the pinda darpana, or these rituals that atone for our ancestors, that appease our ancestors, our Pitrus. They are Varanasi, the Gaya, and the very place of Vishnupada. So in the puja itself, we celebrate that the body of Kala Bhairava, the very feet of Mahavishnu, and the Brahma Kapala, which is the begging bowl of Paramashiva, literally the begging bowl of Paramashiva also accepts and digests all of the karmas. So in this way, we celebrate that the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism is literally the embodiment of all three of these and more, literally a literal digester of our karmas and a person who can give us living enlightened life, because once our karmas are removed from us, we have the opportunity to literally radiate and live enlightened life, powerful, blissful life, without any limitations, without any karmic baggage inside of us. And this is what is done when we celebrate him as the embodiment of Brahma Kapala, Vishnupada, and the very form of Kala Bhairava Puswarupa. We say this, and we also pray that we all of the ancestors achieve videhamuk, coming oneness with. By doing the Maheshwara Puja, someone can also understand that they are also surrendering their karmas at the feet of Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism. And we chant that in the Sankalpa, and following that we will be chanting the 15th chapter, followed by an Upachara Puja, where we offer various offerings to the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, and concluding the whole puja with a wonderful Pushpanjali with sacred mantras from the Guru Gita. So many pujas, so many mantras are there, so much to understand. It's a very feast to the eyes, feast to the senses, to be able to partake in the Maheshwara Puja. So as we get ready, in a few moments we will be beginning the Maheshwara Puja. Be ready, sit with your head, neck and spine in a straight line. Breathe in and out and exhale, inhale deeply and slowly. Let us get ready to invoke the Pitrus, and let us get ready to offer the Maheshwara Puja. In a few moments we will be starting after a short break.
bless you all. Let you all open all your three eyes and manifest the powers of Mahashwara. Om Nithyananda Paramashivam. 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 Om Nithyananda Paramashivam.
Nithyanandam. On this auspicious Tithi of Ashadha Amavasya, few devotees are offering the Maheshwara Puja at the Divine Lotus Feet of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Nithyananda Paramashivam. Now, requesting all the monastic members of the Nithyananda order to sit with your head, neck and spine in a straight line. Bring your awareness to the Ananda Gandha. Now requesting the listening of all the Maheshwara Puja participants. Please be in a space of deep restful awareness and gratitude in the Ananda Gandha as we make the following declarations. Kindly have authentic listening to the truths behind the Maheshwara Puja. If you authentically cognize, which is internally process, understand and respond that you agree to the truths behind the Maheshwara Puja, which will be told now. If you agree, please say yes loudly at the end of each declaration. Yes. The truth behind the Maheshwara Puja is that I authentically cognize, which is internally process, understand and declare the truth. Cosmic energy exists. Yes. I authentically cognize, which is internally process, understand and declare the truth that the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Nithyananda Paramashivam, is the Chinmaya Vigraha, the embodiment and representation of that very cosmic energy. Yes. I authentically cognize, which is internally process, understand and declare the truth that the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Nithyananda Paramashivam, is a pure channel for complete completion to be achieved for all the departed souls and for completion to be achieved for all the participants with the departed souls. Yes. I authentically cognize, which is internally process, understand and declare the truth that during the Maheshwara Puja, all the monastic members of the Nithyananda order become a pure channel for complete completion to be achieved for all the departed souls and for completion to be achieved for all the participants with the departed souls. Yes. I authentically cognize, which is internally process, understand and declare the truth that offering of the Maheshwara Puja will bestow complete completion for all the departed souls whose photo or horoscope is mentioned here, and completion will be bestowed on all the Maheshwara Puja participants with the departed souls for whom they are offering Maheshwara Puja here today. Yes. We'll now begin the rituals for the Maheshwara Puja. Please be seated. Close your eyes. We'll now be invoking the Divine Presence of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Nithyananda Paramashivam. नित्यानन्दं परमसुखदं केवलं ज्ञानमूर्तिं द्वन्द्वातीतं गगनसदृशं तत्त्वमस्यादिलक्ष्यम् एकं नित्यं विमलमचलं सर्वदी साक्षिभूतं भावातीतं त्रिगुणरहितं सद्गुरुं तं नमामि। नित्यानन्देश्वर परमशिव समारम्भां नित्यानन्देश्वरी परमशिव शक्ति मध्यमां नित्यानन्दपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां। ललाटे त्रिपुण्ड्री नितिलधृतकस्तूरी तिलकः स्फुरन्मालाधारस्फुरितकटिकौपीनवसनः तदा नो दुष्टारं शिरसि फणिराजं शशिकलां प्रदीपः सर्वेषां अरुणगिरियोगी विजयते। ममोपात्त समस्त दुरितक्षयद्वारा भगवच्छ्री नित्यानंद परमशिव प्रीत्यर्थम् अद्य पूर्वोक्त एवं गुण विशेषेण विशिष्टायाम् अस्यां शुभतिथौ निगर्देश नक्षत्रे वृषभराशो जातायाः अरवल्लीनां याः आविट्टम नक्षत्रे कुंभराशो जातायाः गायत्री देवी नाम याः सत्यं नक्षत्रे कुंभराशो जातस्य गोपीनाथन् नामधेयस्य स्वाति नक्षत्रे तुलाराशो जातस्य तवसीलन नाम अधेयस्य उत्तिरणं नक्षत्रे मकरनाशो जातस्य जयकणेश नाम अधेयस्य ऐल्य नक्षत्रे खड्गराशो जातस्य दिनोधरन् नामधेयस्य केट्टै नक्षत्रे वृश्चिकं राशो जातायाः यमुना देवी नाम याः तिरोणं नक्षत्रे मघाराशो जातायाः कृषिका नाम याः पूर्णं नक्षत्रे धनुर्राशो जातस्य तरकेश्वर नामधेयस्य स्वाति नक्षत्रे तुलाराशो जातस्य चश्विन्याश नामधेयस्य सकुटुम्भस्य चेन्लिकुन् नाम याः वांगशुशेंग नामधेयस्य आंड्रेयास जिंगमिंग वांग नामधेयस्य फेर आर्ने क्योन नामधेयस्य चेंगवांग नामधेयस्य सकुटुम्भस्य कॉक्स्यू फूंग नाम याः सकुटुम्भस्य च ब्रह्मकपाल विष्णुपाद कालभैरववपुस्वरूप श्री कैलासोन्नत द्वादशांत श्यामला पीठारूढ़ श्री मीनाक्षी सुंदरेश्वरा भिन्न स्वरूप परशिवपुत्र रत्नकुमार गुरुमण्यतुल्यावतार श्री पार्वती स्तन्यपान लब्ध दिव्य ज्ञान विश्रुत सकल निगमागम सारभूत द्राविड वेद प्रभक्तृ श्रीमत् परमशिव करुणा समधिगत मुक्तामय चतुरश्रयान गीयमान छत्र चामर श्री चिन्ह काहलादि समस्त बिरडावल्यलंकृत ज्ञान विज्ञान चक्रवर्ती सर्वजन संग सद्यो निर्वाण दीक्षा व्ययापवर्गवर्ष विश्रान जिमूत परमत कलभ केसरी शैव सिद्धांत स्थापनाचार्य श्री राजाधिराज पांड्य महाराज गुरु क्षपन शाख्यादि महांधकार निवारण ज्ञान भानु वीक्षणा नरहार ध्वधोच्छेदन पूर्वक श्रीमद्वृषभक कर्तृ सर्वज्ञ पीठारु श्री ज्ञान संबंध देशिक स्वामी वागीश सुंदर माणिक्य वाचक स्वामिनाम अवतार भूत श्री ज्ञान संबंध स्वामी पुनरुद्धृत पीठ सर्वज्ञ पीठ तृणविशधासन्निधागत अरुन्निधर कांची कैलास सर्वज्ञ पीठ त्रयस्त्रिंशदुत्तर द्विशततम गुरु महासन्निधान नित्योत्सव नित्य मंगल नित्य कल्याण नित्य रजित कैलास परंपरागत आदि कैलास नित्यानंद पीठ महासंस्थान महासिंहासन पीठ कर्तृ साक्षात् श्री परमशिव समुद्भूत कैलास परंपरागत वैवस्वत मनु इक्ष्वाकु हरिश्चंद्र भगीरथ श्रीरामचंद्र शूरसेन इत्याद्यनवच्छिन्न सार्वभौम चक्रवर्ती परंपरागत चतुष्षष्टि योगिनी मंडित चतुष्षष्टि संप्रदाय प्रवर्तक मनुधर्म शासन सूर्यवंश प्राप्त सर्वज्ञ पीठ सुरांगी साम्राज्य मूर्धाभिषिक्त चूडामणे साक्षात् श्री परमशिव समुद्भूत कपिल महागुरु पुनरुद्धृत महानिर्वाणी पीठ अष्टोत्तर सहस्र श्री महामंडलेश्वर साक्षात् श्री परमशिव समुद्भूत श्री महागणपति समारंभ अनवच्छिन्न पीठाधीश्वर गुरु परंपरा प्राप्त अटल पीठ अष्टोत्तर सहस्र श्री अटल पीठाधीश्वर धर्म मुक्ति स्वर्गपुर स्वर्ण पीठ त्रयोविंश गुरु महासन्निधान कैलास परंपरागत आदिपीठ सर्वज्ञ पीठ जगद्गुरु श्री कैलास पुनरुद्धारक श्री कैलास परमाचार्य श्रीमद् परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य वर्य सच्चिदानंद प्रणव स्वरूप श्रोत्रिय ब्रह्मनिष्ठ श्रीमद् जगद्गुरु श्रील श्री भगवत श्री नित्यानंद परमशिव श्री ज्ञान संबंध देशिक परमाचार्य स्वामिनां प्रीत्यर्थम पूर्वोक्तानां सर्वेषां जीवन मुक्ति प्राप्त्यर्थम एतेषां दिवं गतु बंधुमित्र वर्गाणां विदेह मुक्ति प्राप्त्यर्थम च परमशिव स्वरूप भगवत श्री नित्यानंद परमशिव मुखेन महेश्वर पूजाक्य कर्म करिष्ये. Thus chanting the Sankalpa, praying to the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Nithyananda Paramashivam, to grant us Jivan Mukti and to grant all of those departed souls connected to us, to grant them Videha Mukti. Now we will chant the 15th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, the Purushottama Yoga. पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवतां नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिनां मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्धदामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम्। अथ पुरुषोत्तमयोगो नाम पञ्चदशोऽध्यायः। श्रीभगवानुवाच ऊर्ध्वमूलमधः शाखम् अश्वत्थं प्राहुरव्ययम् छन्दांसि यस्य पर्णानि यस्तं वेद स वेदवित्. Shri Bhagavan says, the imperishable banyan tree of life, symbolized by the Ashwatha, has its roots above with the leaves and branches spreading below the earth. The leaves are said to be the Vedic hymns. One who knows this eternal tree becomes the knower of the Vedas. Adhaschordhvam prasrutastasya shakha gunapravriddha vishayah pravalaha adhascha mulyanyanusantathani karmanubandhini manushya-loke. The branches of this tree extend below and above the earth, nourished by the three human attributes guna. Its buds are the sense objects. This tree also has roots going down, and these are bound by the resultant actions of humans. Narupamasye na tato palabhyate nanto na chadir na cha sampratishtha ashvathamenam suvirudamulam ashanga shastrena dridena chitva. The real form of this tree cannot be perceived. No one can understand where it begins, where it ends, and where its foundation is. But with determination one must cut down this strongly rooted tree with the weapon of detachment. Tatav padam tat parimargitavyam yasmin gata na nivartanti bhuyaha tameva chadyam purusham prapadye yatah pravritti prashritat purani. One must then seek that place from which, having gone, one never returns, and surrender to the Supreme Being from whom all activities started from ancient times. Nirmana moha jita sanga dosha adhyatma nitya vinivritta kamaha dvandvair vimukta sukha dukha sangyer gacchantyamudav padhamavyayam tat. Those who are free from pride, delusion and attachment, those who dwell in the self, who are done with lust, who are free from the dualities of joy and sorrow, not confused, and those who know how to surrender to the Supreme Person, attain the eternal consciousness. Na tad bhasayate suryo na shashanko na pavakaha yad gatva na nivartante tadhama paramam mama. That supreme space of eternal consciousness. My consciousness is not illumined by the sun, nor by the moon, nor by fire. Those who enter that space never return to this material world. Mamaivamso jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatanaha manashyasthani indriyani prakritisthani karshati. The living entities in this conditioned material world are a portion of my eternal self. In this conditioned material world, they are attracted by the six senses, which include the mind dwelling in Prakriti, the active energy principle. Shariram yadavapnoti Yacchatyukramatishvaraha grihitvaitani samyati Vayurgandhani vashayat. The spirit in the mind body living in this material world moves from one body to another, carrying these just as air carries aroma. Strotram chakshusparshanam cha rasanam ghranameva cha adhisthaya manaschayam vishayanupasevate. The living entity, the spirit, leaves one body, takes some other body, gets new eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and sensing body according to the samskaras it had in its causal layer, and enjoys the new mental setup. Utkramantam stitham vapi munjanam vagunanvitam vimudhananupashyanti Paschanti jnana chakshushaha. Fools in ignorance do not perceive the spirit being united with the gunas as it enters, enjoys, and leaves the body. The one whose inner eye is open clearly perceives everything. Yatanto yoginas chainam pashyantyatmanyavasthitam yatanto pakrutatmano Nainam paschancha chetasaha. The serious practitioner of yoga with an understanding of his self can see all this clearly. But those who do not have an understanding of the self, however much they try, cannot see. Yada didyagadam tejo jagadbhasayate khilam yachandramasi yachagno Tattejo vidhi mamakam. The light of the sun and the light of the moon and the light of fire, all their radiance is also from me. Gama vishyacha bhutani dharayam yahamojasa pushnami chauschadhi sarva somo bhutva rasatmakaha. Entering into earth, I support all beings with my energy. Becoming the watery moon, I nourish all plant life. Aham Vaishvanaro bhutva praninam dehamashritaha pranapanasama pachanyannam chaturvidham. I am the fire of digestion in every living body, and I am the breath of life exhaled and inhaled, with which I digest the fourfold food. Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishto matta smritirjnanam apohanam cha vedescha sarve rahameva vedyo vedanta kridveda videva chaham. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me came memory, knowledge, and their laws. I am known by the Vedas indeed, and I am the creator of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. Dvavimo purusho loke kharascha yevacha kharas sarvani bhutani kuthasto kshara uchyate. There are two things, the perishable and the imperishable in this world. There are the living beings who are perishable, while there is the unchangeable, the imperishable. Uttama purushastvanyaha paramatmetyudahridaha yo lokatrayamavishya bibhartyavyaya ishvaraha. Besides these two, there is the Supreme Purusha, the Lord Himself, who pervades and sustains these three worlds. Yasmaksharamati toham aksharatapi chottamaha atosmi loke vedecha pratitah purushottamaha. As I am transcendental, beyond both the perishable and the imperishable and the best, I am declared both in the world and in the Vedas as the Supreme Person, Purushottama. Yo mame mama sammudho janati purushottamam sa sarvavid bhajati mam sarva bhavena bharata. Whoever knows me as the Supreme without a doubt is to be understood as the knower of everything, and he worships me with all his being. O son of Bharata, iti guhyatamam shastram idam muktam maya nagha etad buddhva buddhiman syat kritakrityascha Bharata. This is the most profound teaching taught by me, O sinless one, and whoever knows this will become wise, and his actions will bear fruit. Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Purushottama Yogo Nama Panchadashodhyayah. In the Upanishad of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, the scripture of yoga dealing with Brahma Vidya, Yoga Shastra, the science of Brahman, the Supreme Absolute, in the form of Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvada, the dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna. This is the 15th chapter named Purushottama Yoga, the yoga of the Supreme Being. Vasudevasutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. We'll now be continuing with the Guru Puja. We'll now chant the Manasa Puja. Om Hrid Padmamasanam Dadyat Sahasrarachyutamrutaihi Padyam Charanayor Dadyat Manastu Argyam Nivedayet Tena amritena achamaniyam snaniyam tena chasmritam akashatattvam vastram syat gandhasyat gandhatatvakam chittam prakalpayet pushpam dhupam pranan prakalpayet tejastattvam cha deepartham naivedyam syat sudham buddhihi Anahatadvanirghanta Vayutatvam cha chamaram Sahasraram bhavet chatram Shabdhatatvam cha geetakam Nrityam indriya karmani Chanchalyam manasasthatha Sumekalam badmamalam Pushpam nana vidham tata Amayadyir bhava pushpehi Archayet bhava gocharam Amayam anahankaram Aragam amadham tata Amohagam adambam cha Advesha akshobhako tata Amatsaryam alobham cha Dasapushpam vidurbudaha Ahimsa paramam pushpam Pushpamindriya nigraha Daya pushpam kshama pushpam Jnana pushpam cha panchamam Iti panchadaser Bhava pushpaihi Sampujayet Bhagavantam Shri Nithyananda Paramashivam. We will now offer the Upachara Puja, the external worship. Om Hrim Etat Padyam Sarvadeva Devi Swarupaya Bhagavate Shri Nithyananda Paramashivaya Namaha. Om Hrim Esha Argyaha सर्वदेवदेवी स्वरूपाय भगवते श्रीनित्यानंद परमशिवाय नमः। ओम ह्रीं इदं आचमनीयं सर्वदेवदेवी स्वरूपाय भगवते श्रीनित्यानंद परमशिवाय नमः। ओम ह्रीं इदं स्नानीयं सर्वदेवदेवी स्वरूपाय भगवते श्रीनित्यानंद परमशिवाय नमः। ओम ह्रीं इदं वस्त्रं सर्वदेवदेवी स्वरूपाय भगवते श्रीनित्यानंद परमशिवाय नमः। ओम ह्रीं एषद्गन्धः सर्वदेवदेवी स्वरूपाय भगवते श्रीनित्यानंद परमशिवाय नमः। ओम ह्रीं इदं सचन्दन पुष्पं सर्वदेवदेवी स्वरूपाय भगवते श्रीनित्यानंद परमशिवाय नमः। ओम ह्रीं इदं सचन्दन बिल्वपत्रं सर्वदेवदेवी स्वरूपाय भगवते श्रीनित्यानंद परमशिवाय नमः। ओम ह्रीं एषद्धूपः सर्वदेवदेवी स्वरूपाय भगवते श्रीनित्यानंद परमशिवाय नमः। ओम ह्रीं एषद्दीपः सर्वदेवदेवी स्वरूपाय भगवते श्रीनित्यानंद परमशिवाय नमः। ओम ह्रीं इदं सोपकर्णनैवेद्यं सर्वदेवदेवी स्वरूपाय भगवते श्रीनित्यानंद परमशिवाय नमः। ओम ह्रीं इदं पानार्थोदकं सर्वदेवदेवी स्वरूपाय भगवते श्रीनित्यानंद परमशिवाय नमः। ओम ह्रीं इदं पुनराचमनीयं सर्वदेवदेवी स्वरूपाय भगवते श्रीनित्यानंद परमशिवाय नमः। आरात्रिकम् ओम राजाधिराजाय प्रसह्यसाहिने नमो वयं वै श्रवणाय कुर्महे समे कामान् कामकामाय मह्यं कामेश्वरो वै श्रवणो ददातु कुबेराय वै श्रवणाय महाराजाय नमः। कर्पूरगौरं करुणावतारं संसारसारं भुजगेन्द्रहारं सदा वसन्तं हृदयारविन्दे भवं भवानी सहितं नमामि भवं भवानी सहितं नमामि भवं भवानी सहितं नमामि। आरात्रिकं समर्पयामि भगवत् श्री नित्यानंद परमशिव चरणकमलेभ्यो नमः। पुष्पांजलिः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। अखण्डमण्डलाकारं व्याप्तं येन चराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। अनेक जन्म संप्राप्त कर्म बंध विदाहिने आत्मज्ञान प्रधानेन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। मन्नाथ श्री जगन्नाथो मद्गुरु श्री जगद्गुरु ममात्मा सर्वभूतात्मा तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। ईश्वरो गुरुराप्नेति मूर्तिभेद विभागिने व्योमव्याप्त देहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। नित्यानन्दं परमसुखदं केवलं ज्ञानमूर्तिं द्वन्द्वातीतं गगनसदृशं तत्त्वमस्यादिलक्ष्यम् एकं नित्यं विमलमचलं सर्वधी साक्षिभूतं भावातीतं त्रिगुणरहितं सद्गुरुं तं नमामि। पुष्पांजलिं समर्पयामि भगवच्छ्री नित्यानंद परमशिव चरणकमलेभ्यो नमः। ओम नित्यानंदम्। All the sannyasis of the Nityananda order are now requested to distribute and partake the pinda prasadam. Thank you, Nityanandam.
தெய்வம் இங்கு உணவு படைக்கும் ஆனந்தீஸ்வரி வரப்பிரசாதம்
Paramashivam. Om Nithyananda Paramashivam. Let our biology become one with Paramashiva's biology. Let macrocosm we carry become one with microcosm. Let the microcosm we carry become one with macrocosm of Paramashiva. Let our organism become one with Paramashiva's organism. Let Paramashiva's organism become one with our organism. Let oneness become living strategy, living experience of all of us. Amda Mahavagya, do it intensely. Om Nithyananda Paramashivam. Om Nithyananda Paramashivam. Om Nithyananda Paramashivam. Om Nithyananda Paramashivam. Om Nithyananda Paramashivam.